Welcome to Michael Potts F1, the story behind the photograph. Recently, I've started a new YouTube channel where I deep dive into the story behind a specific photograph that I've taken. And I thought I'd like to try that with a Formula One image. So since we're in Azerbaijan, on the shores of the Caspian Sea, I would like to show you a photograph that I took in 2018 of Daniel Ricciardo colliding the back of Max Verstappen. The 2018 Azerbijan Grand Prix was the first race I'd covered professionally. I actually only got the call a few days before the race started, so I had to frantically book flights and accommodation and hurtle across France in a white van just to make it on time. I got here just before the start of the first practice session, and when Max Verstappen spun and crashed right in front of me, and I had the wrong lens, I was shooting wide instead of a lot closer. So I missed the shot that I was hoping to get, but I realised it was going to be a steep learning curve. Before the start of the race, things at Red Bull were getting a bit spicy. In 2017, the year before, Daniel Ricciardo had started the season as clear team number one. And he was doing pretty well, but the last 6 races of the season, Max absolutely dominated. He got 2 wins, one in Malaysia and one in Mexico, and a second place in Japan. And he was starting to look really special, starting to deliver on all that promise that he had had for a few years. You could see that the internal focus of the team had shifted towards Max, away from Daniel. So at the start of the 2018 season, it felt like Max was under a lot of pressure to try and prove that he deserved to be there, he deserved to be the team leader. Red Bull didn't have the fastest car, they were third behind Mercedes and Ferrari, but that didn't mean that the rivalry wasn't fierce. In the first race, in Australia, Max outqualified Daniel, but then made an error during the race and spun. This allowed Daniel to finish ahead in 4th place. In round 2, Max made an error in qualifying and crashed out. This meant that he had to start in 15th place. His teammate qualified in 5th. In the race, Max tangled with Lewis and had a puncture, but both red cars were to retire early, both with mechanical issues. So going into round 3 in China, the pressure was really on. When Ricciardo's turbo failed in 3rd practice, requiring the car to be completely rebuilt, the team having to work flat out to get the car ready for qualifying. Ricciardo was only 6th behind his teammate. The race was chaotic, and towards the end, Daniel pulled off a stunning overtake maneuver on Vettel. Then, with a few laps later, Max attempted to pass the German, but instead shunted him, causing both cars to spin. Max received a 10-second penalty and finished 5th. Daniel won the race. That was a remarkable win by Ricciardo. It was a huge statement. It was him saying that he was still the best driver at Red Bull, despite Max's promise. So after 3 races, he was leading 37 points to 18. Coming into the race weekend in Azerbaijan, round 4, and seeing Max spin just in front of me, I realised that the pressure really was on him. During qualifying, he was outqualified by his teammate by a fraction of a second. On the grid, Max didn't look particularly happy. He looked quite frustrated as he received his final instructions from his race engineer. The race start was clean, all the cars made it around the first corner. The 2 Red Bulls were neck and neck throughout the race, switching paces on numerous occasions. Then, on lap 40, Max had managed to get ahead of Daniel in the pit stops. At this point, I was walking back to the paddock. It was time to go and prepare for the podium celebrations, and as I was walking past the start-finish straight, I decided to take one more speculative poke through the fence and see what I could get. And there, the 2 Red Bulls were coming down the straight. Daniel was lining up Max for an overtake, but instead of sliding out next to him, there was this puff of smoke and Max's car rose into the air. Carbon fibre filled the sky, sparks showered the 2 drivers. They hurtled out of control towards me. Both cars were completely ruined. When the drivers climbed out and separately walked away, neither man talking to the other, as they sulked off. The photograph that I've chosen is the moment that the 2 cars come together, where Max is lifted into the air. There's a puff of smoke, there's carbon fibre, there's a few sparks. I think this one captured the drama quite beautifully. Here's the photograph as it came out of the camera. I'm shooting with a Nikon D850 and a 400mm lens. My shutter speed is 1/4000 and my f-stop is 6.3. ISO is set to 2000. The first thing I did was to crop the image. There's quite a lot of open space and I really only wanted the detail of the crash. And next I adjusted the color balance of the image. So here I am opening up the shadows, making the darker areas a bit stronger, lightening the whiter bits, generally just making the colors a little bit more punchy and adding a bit more drama to the image. Next, I isolated the 2 vehicles, making the background a lot darker. This makes the cars stand out against the background, and again, it's about increasing the drama. Finally, I cleaned up some of the areas of the image. There were a few odd bits of colour that were jumping out, which I decided to suppress. And I also enhanced the sharpness of the vehicles, making sure that they stood out and they were nice and crisp. And here is the final image, capturing that moment where the two cars collide. The fallout from the crash was huge. While both drivers were reprimanded, somehow Max was able to underscore his dominance in the team, his position as the preferred driver. While Daniel would win a race in Monaco, that would be the only time for the rest of the season that he outscored Max when both drivers finished. Daniel could see the writing of the wall, and by the end of the year he was out and had moved over to Renault. And for Max, this was the start of a very dominant period, where not only did he completely dismantle his teammates, but he also became a two-time world champion. Thank you for watching the story behind the photograph. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, please do like and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Please stay tuned because there's going to be lots more content coming from Baku over the course of the race weekend. This race weekend is going to be particularly exciting. Formula One is trying a brand new format, so let's see how it goes. Until the next one, goodbye.